eventually.
Exciting times.
Okay, so
Right.
after the delay, it should.
Yeah, we're live actually.
Oh, the ads.
Yeah, ads.
After the delay,
oh god,
you'll need to mute your computers. Hello.
Hey.
Okay, so I think we're live. Hello, I'm Jamie Maldonado. This is my channel, of course, and I'm here with a bunch of photographers. Is this? Is anyone else getting audio from random? Sorry, I'm getting an ad or something. Let me see if I can. Is anyone else hearing this commercial? I'm muted everywhere. Oh, I found it.
You got
Okay,
the
thank
video.
you. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, it was hiding behind okay. Okay, I'm Jamie Maldonado. This is my channel, and I will cut out the whole thing that just happened, and it'll be like it never showed up. Okay, I'm Jamie Maldonado. This is my channel. I'm here with 7 awesome film photography creators, and we're talking about the state of the film photography industry, I guess from our perspective, from the user perspective, and the enthusiast perspective. And this all started from a chat I had with T Hopper, and we were talking about these expensive point and shoot film cameras that like the T2 is the Yashica, not the Contax T2 and the Yashica T4, the 2 big ones that are like skyrocketing in price, and they're like $1,000 each and everything, or sometimes, and the Pentax 67 and stuff like that, and how expensive they were getting. And we're wondering if maybe this is driving people away from being film photographers because they think, oh no, I've got to buy this $1,000 camera. This is just too much, or they get it and it breaks and things like that. But I'll go ahead and start introductions. And I guess since I'm here, you're probably familiar enough with me and my channel, but I'm a film photography creator, and we'll start with Dave.
Hello, I'm Dave Mahali, and I'm a photographer from Central Ohio here in the US. Name of my YouTube channel is The Old Camera Guy, because I deal with old cameras and I'm an old guy. So mostly what I do on my channel is kind of cheap thrift store point and shoot cameras, a lot of those, and some experimental film stocks. And occasionally I like to dabble in some strange techniques too, like film soup and bleach bypass, that sort of thing.
Madison.
Yeah, hi, my name is Madison Beach, and I run Madison Beach channel. It's all about film photography, basically, and I do a bit of everything from camera reviews to road reviews.
I forgot to ask, is it Karen or Karen?
Oh, hi, I'm Karin Mayuka. Well, you can say it the English way as well. Karen is fine, but I'm a photographer based in Germany, so in German you say Karin. And I just recently started a YouTube channel, I think 4 or 5 months ago, about film photography. And on there's pretty much everything related to film that comes to mind. So I'm just experimenting and seeing what I can make happen. That's basically it.
Vince.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Vince Perry. Run a channel, obviously just my name here. But yeah, I run a channel that includes like film photography as well as digital. Like it always hasn't been film, but over like probably like the last year and a half or so, I really dove deep into film as like my primary medium for shooting, of course, photos. Do a little bit of portrait photography, like fashion, some street stuff, travel, kind of like take photos of a lot of different subjects, to be honest. And then, you know, just as far as YouTube, I kind of just like explore my own my own interests, and then just kind of like be able to document that process a little bit. And yeah, if anybody can, excuse me, learn from my experiences and things, you know, that's great. And then, you know, just continue to build community from there.
Great. Joan?
Hi, everyone. My name is Joan Michelle, and I'm a photographer, filmmaker. My YouTube channel focuses not just on film photography, but also I direct short films. I also do music videos. I do it all pretty much. And I also host an interview segment called Creative Juice, where I interview film photographers. Some of the people here have been interviewed already. So if you want to check out those episodes, you can also check that out on my channel.
T?
Oh, hi. So my name is Tatiana. I'm from the channel T Hopper. And well, I do a bit of everything. I talk about film photography. I talk about whatever comes to my mind. You know, I kind of have a dandelion mind. So it's kind of like thoughts come and go. And so I put that on my videos with the other, whether it's history, philosophy, photography. I like to kind of blend into the sort of theoretical side of things. But yeah, I'm based in the UK currently, and nice to see you all here, and nice to see that people are watching. Hello to everyone watching. And yeah.
And Marcus.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marcus, and the channel I'm running is DM Photography. I'm a future archaeologist or futurist, so during my professional work, I deal with the future. So basically mid-century, mid-21st century is my main professional thing. Photography is more a hobby of mine. And when I started my channel, I was just recently getting into the DM system from Leica, and I didn't find a lot of information that I needed, and thought that I want to create a channel that fills a couple of things that I wish I knew, or I wish I would have found, and then slowly drifted over to also do film photography. And yeah, so I now do also a lot of videos about film photography. I recently, or beginning of the year, also got into medium format with the Mamiya RZ67. So yeah, and I'm based in Zurich. Hi, everyone.
I forgot if I said I'm based in Texas. We're one of the things I'm excited about with this is we're all over the world. If you're not familiar with all of the creators here, also, by the way, everyone here is linked in the description on this, and I encourage you all to subscribe to everyone you might not be subscribed to. So I guess we can just kind of start with the chat, and I've got I had a little notepad of questions. But we're familiar with it. So what have we noticed changing as film photographers, or if we're new film photographers? What do we think about the expensive cameras and things like that? And as a part of this was we have these point and shoots, and they have gotten pretty expensive, and YouTubers, of course, will talk about them, or people on Instagram, like the Pentax 67 and Contax T2. And does that create an idea that maybe you have to have one of those, or what are you seeing out there, I guess? And we can just, we could try free for all, or, sorry, Dave, you want to give this one a go? Since I'm going in my order, and I noticed the order on the actual screen is completely different than mine. So I'm just, it's going by my screen order, so.
Yep. Well, I would say this, gone are the glory days where you could just walk into a thrift store and get a T4 for a couple bucks, or a stylus epic for $1 or $2. And I don't know, I think that's kind of a good and bad thing. You know, I mean, the bad thing is, you know, you're going to pay more for a camera these days, but maybe the good thing is that might help make photography more sustainable. And it's kind of funny, a couple of the cameras you mentioned, I'm actually kind of jonesing for a Pentax 67 right now. I want to make the dive into medium format myself, and I think that might be the easiest transition, because it's kind of like a overgrown 35mm SLR is what I've heard. But that's, you know, a thing, again, I'm gonna have to save for, or maybe trade in or sell some of those flashy compact point and shoots you were talking about, because I do have a T4 I'm holding on to. But this might be the time to get rid of that, because it's kind of a seller's market right now.
Madison?
Yeah, so I definitely got sucked into it to begin with. I always wanted like a Leica or Contax or whatever, but it was YouTube what got me out of it, because every video I was trying a different camera. And at the moment, my favorite camera is one I got from a thrift store for $3.99, a Polaroid 35mm. So like, if I didn't do YouTube, I was probably still going for those ones. But for me, I don't know, maybe I'm a cheapskate, but the cheaper the better. And I'm always going to thrift stores.
Cool. It's cool that it got you out of it. So that's something interesting that's going on.
Yeah.
That I didn't expect. Karin?
Well, I would say it's, as David said, kind of 2 points of the story, because on the one hand, it kind of shows that there's a market for it. There's more people kind of interested in it. You could argue that maybe also the supply is definitely going down, since these cameras are old and are broken. So this is definitely an important point. But I think just these cameras rising in prices shows that there are people who want them. But on the other hand, I'm kind of torn apart, because everybody's kind of scared to get a Contax, because one day it might break and then you just have a very, very expensive paperweight. So it's like two sides of the story. But on the other hand, I think we have to distinguish between cameras that are kind of, let's say, worth their money in terms of what they really are. If there are mechanical cameras, there's kind of no way they could break. And then there's kind of hyped cameras, which are kind of there for the price because other people use them and they are getting popular. And I think we cannot just throw everything in one box, but we have to differentiate why specific cameras are at the price they are at right now, I would say.
Vince?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm the perfect person to come right after that. I feel like I own probably two of the most popular cameras, just the Contax G2 here. It's a pretty camera. I paid a pretty price for it as well, and it was actually broken for some time. Like, I didn't actually get to use it until like, I want to say like 3 months after I bought it. And I think I paid like $1,000 for it. And that was like last summer. So, you know, things have obviously changed since then. And then like probably the most popular medium format camera, maybe just the RZ. And I bought this one like last spring. I think probably right before it started kind of like heating up as far as like YouTube goes. Like I paid $600 for it, but I think like at the end of the day, like with all these cameras, you know, some of these cameras are more popular than others, obviously because of like the quality and just what people are producing with the cameras themselves. You know, like there's no secret that some of these cameras are just like the top of their class. And, you know, sometimes we just kind of like want to have the best. Now, I don't think you necessarily need these cameras to kind of just get into film photography, but I mean, I can definitely take the blame for some of that of just like using these cameras and then, you know, people seeing me and kind of like driving up the demand for it. You know, I don't think it's necessarily like us directly talking about the cameras or using the cameras more or less isn't like making the price go up, but people seeing us and then just like having an awareness, like everybody's producing great photos with these cameras and things. And, you know, obviously kind of like looking on, people are wanting to do the same. So obviously just as a cause from that, you know, the demand goes up. But I don't think these cameras are the only way in, you know, into film, especially with medium format with like the RZ. The Pentax 67, I think, is like great. I mean, I started on the RB67. I think the most important thing, like if anybody's looking to get into this, just get into something that you can afford. You don't necessarily need to spend like a ton of money on these systems to kind of just get out and start shooting. I mean, I started on a Canon AE-1 program in 2018. And at the time, that was like the camera that I seen a lot, like on YouTube, and I paid like $150 for that. So just kind of like all depends. You know, the biggest thing is just find something that's, you know, within your budget and, you know, just get out and shoot. That's the most important thing, regardless of whatever camera anybody's using, whether it's hyped up or something that, you know, you just find in a thrift store that's $4 or $5. I think the most important thing is that, you know, people are getting interested in photography, whether that's specifically film photography. And I think that's a great thing for everybody. You know, everybody's just getting out there shooting, you know, whatever, with whatever system they can get their hands on. So I think that's like a beautiful thing.
Yep. Joan?
I feel like Vince said everything. No, I'm just kidding. So Vince and I, we always have this kind of conversation, and I also always get questioned, like, what kind of camera should I get? And especially when I watch everyone here, like all the cameras that they use, obviously you get tempted. You're like, you want to go on eBay and check out the price for that camera. I've always, you know, do that. But in the end of the day, I realize I don't want to like hoard all the film cameras in the world. And there's so many cameras that I got from like thrift stores where I'm like, they're still sitting there and I haven't used them yet and I feel guilty. So as much as like I get sucked into wanting a Leica or an RZ67, I usually end up like getting the camera that like I see, and then I end up realizing that it still produces the same results, because in the end of the day, what matters is how you capture the photo and how you do the composition. It has nothing, I mean, yeah, like there's definitely like camera technicalities when it comes to like the lens and stuff like that. But even still, like, I feel like if you use a 35mm compared to another 35mm or medium format to another medium format, it's still like is the same result if you're like the same photographer or some sort of thing. So I feel like if you're feeling guilty because you don't have the same camera as like this YouTuber that you watch or something like that, like don't be discouraged just because you don't have the same camera. Like you can still produce the same results or even better with like a camera that not everyone uses. And I think I'm more also inclined to want to get a camera that not everyone uses, because like if you can show off that you can really produce work with that camera, then pretty much like, let's say the RZ67 won't even matter anymore, you know what I mean? So for me, I've just always used my TLR, my Yashica Mat 124G. And like, as much as I'm tempted to get all these other cameras, I like stick by it. And like, I also feel like you should learn how to use your camera to the point, like, I feel like people just keep buying and buying and buying, but they don't really ever really figure out how to use their camera all the way. And I think that it gets really tempting to want to get a new toy or a new camera, but I think you should also, like, that's the whole process of like film photography, is like slowing down and like learning your equipment and learning how to like produce, you know, good photos. So yeah.
T?
I feel like Vince and Joan probably have said everything that I wanted to say. But yeah, I do agree with pretty much everyone, of course. And I feel like, as they pointed out very well, there's obviously downsides and there's obviously very positive sides. And as Joan pointed out, I feel like the idea is that it doesn't matter the medium. If what counts is your intention as an artist and your ideas, and if you're able to express yourself, which is the most important thing at the end of the day, and fulfill yourself kind of creatively speaking, I think that's very important. And I feel like before I kind of like going into the Vince idea of owning cameras, like I have a 6.7, a Pentax 6.7, and I've got today an Yashica T4. So I kind of like, I have those cameras, but I started off with really cheap cameras, like Madison was saying, like $3 camera and whatnot, like that I found in probably my grandma's attic and whatnot. And I still was able to learn and produce. And I feel like, again, repeating what they said, but it's cool to see that you don't really need an expensive item or an expensive tool. What counts is like you as a creative artist. And I think that's the most important point in here, I guess. Yeah.
Great. Marcus?
Yeah, so for me, also, again, there was a lot said that I would have also said already, but what I think, especially when it comes to the prices of cameras, I don't know really, I mean, at least for myself, how much YouTube or it's YouTube's or YouTubers' fault that the prices are driving up, because the market is just so small. When I try to find a Mamiya RZ67, I mean, there were a lot of cameras on the market, and I got into the RZ67 way later than Vince, for example, and I still see the RZ67 for 400, 500, 600 on eBay if you want. So I don't think that that price has gone up too far. I think it will naturally grow up because the stock is limited, right, for every camera. But the message maybe that I want to give out to everybody who's watching here and maybe is not bought into these systems yet, I also think that it's not the most important that you follow what your favorite YouTuber is doing. Like T also said, like, follow your passion. Or I always say for me, the most important thing is what gear makes me excited, right? Like I want to shoot with a camera where I say, I really love this camera. I love touching it. I love using it, and not what does my favorite YouTuber shoot. And I think that is the most important. If there's a $3 camera or a $3,000 camera, in the end, I think doesn't matter, because we should just get out, shoot film, you know, with whatever we're passionate about, I think. And we YouTubers, I think, yeah, we might have a little bit of an influence on the prices, but to be honest, I think the market is so much bigger than the YouTubers that I don't think it's significant. Maybe for 1 or 2 models. The Contax T2 thing happened, I think, for so many reasons. But the other prices, yeah, they just naturally rise with all the models.
Yeah, I feel like maybe if we have any contribution negatively to it, it would be that we get excited about like our RZ67 or something and we go out and shoot with it, but they don't, like a new photographer doesn't always realize that, oh, well, that's just the camera this person has, or there are other cameras, or they don't know where to buy their cameras. And I got three RZ67s from a retired photographer for $350 like 2 years ago. It was insane, but they're people like that. They'll I was at like a little outdoor art fair selling zines, and this guy comes up to me, and I'd heard of him before. He is a local retired professional, and he said, "Oh, you like film cameras, huh? Well, would you buy an RZ67?" I'm like, "Yeah," but I was thinking it would be like a bunch. But he said, "Well, pay me what you can." I'm like, "I got $350," and he's like, "Okay." But yeah, and then also we can go out, and I was shooting pictures with a Crown Graphic the other day, and I brought out a Nikon FG20 I got off of Facebook Marketplace, and it sells for like maybe $20, but it's a entirely usable camera. And I think maybe some of these expensive things outside of the obvious ones like the T4 and T2 and stuff like that, maybe it's just people taking advantage of new buyers. And the way we could help is we can let them know that there are these other places where you won't have to pay $300 or like a Canon Autoboy or something like that.
I think that's actually a very good point, Jamie. Like that, it might be also the YouTubers or YouTube community's responsibility to maybe first of all highlight, like you said now in the beginning, that there are other cameras. That just because someone shoots with an RB, an RZ, a Pentax 67 or a Leica M, doesn't mean that there are other cameras that they're not capable. So we should point it out to especially newcomers to the film scene. And yeah, about prices, I mean, I think we can be transparent and we can help that people don't get ripped off. I also think that talking about the prices in the markets, I believe that certain vendors take advantage, and that it's maybe not we YouTubers who are deeper maybe already into this whole game. I think we don't pay the worst prices. I think the newcomers pay the worst prices for film cameras, which makes me sad somehow, but yeah.
And I guess, yeah.
Oh no, sorry, I just said absolutely, because I do agree. Like, I feel like so many times I'm wanting to, buying a camera, I get curious about it. And then, I mean, it costs one arm and one leg to get a camera. And I'm just like, what? It's absolutely insane sometimes, the prices. And yeah, I do feel like the best thing to say to people, especially newcomers, is just focus on getting a grip of film photography, like getting, the basics and whatnot. Don't worry too much about the perfection or being perfect, because that doesn't exist. Perfection is subjective in a way. So I feel like just get on with photography, do your best. And obviously with time, your skills will, you'll develop your style. You'll just give it time and it will come. I think if we rush, sometimes we might collide into some things that we might not necessarily want into our art in a way, or into our style. So yeah, I feel like that's important. And we all made excellent points on that.
And also, I like to add on that, T, as well, that I think if a newcomer comes to film photography and starts with whatever camera that is $3, $150, or $2,000, if they went into it like that high in the beginning, I think what would be good is, if you try to use your gear, if you try to get to the limits of what that gear can do, or try to find out what you don't like about that particular type of camera, be it point and shoot, SLR, rangefinder, whatever, and then move on to the next, and not try to collect as much gear as possible in the beginning. yeah, I think that would be way better, like to really like try to get to the limit of whatever your first system is first.
Can I add one more thing? Because I was thinking that actually it's a bit funny in a way that film photographers bother so much about the camera, because I think from all the types of photography, film photography is the one where the camera kind of matters the least, because especially with film, what matters is the film stock that you use and the lenses. So all you kind of have as an advantage when buying into the camera system is only the lenses that are accessible to you, and also the feeling that you get with the camera. But everything else doesn't matter, because there's nothing that a film camera can do more than any other film camera. You know, except that being, for example, a rangefinder on SLR, like the big categories, there's no advantage in having a good film camera except the lenses and the feeling that you get. So I think this is also something to keep in mind, that you do not buy extra megapixels, you do not buy something very fancy as with digital cameras. So you can chill, you know, you can chill because all you have is the film, and that's all right.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that statement. I mean, I've shot so many photos like on my AE-1 and then just on my G2. And then when I've looked at those photos like side by side, I mean, there's no way I could just tell if I could just pick them out what photo I shot with which, outside of just remembering what camera like I used that day. And it's just like one of those things. I feel like I invested the money in the cameras because I was like just excited about the system. Like I was excited to pick it up. And, you know, I think that's just one thing, you know, if it does it for you like that and you want the camera, then, you know, just go get it, you know, whatever the price is. You know, if it's just going to get you out there shooting and just get you more reps at taking photos, just like T said, it's just, that's the most important part, is just being creative and just being artistic and just kind of like living within that and just going forward with all of it.
Madison or John, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to agree. Basically, like my Pentax K1000 was the first camera I think I ever shot, and that's the one I use most, just because I'm super comfortable with it. I know what it can do, especially like with Karen saying, like if I try new film stock, I know what I can do with that camera. So then I can compare the different film stocks. But I just feel super comfortable with it in my backpack, and I know if I see something, I can get it out and I'll get the shot.
Definitely.
I think this being comfortable or feeling comfortable is really very important. What Madison says, you know, that you really feel comfortable and it's a unit with you and having fun with it.
And I even noticed in using digital that when I was in my like gear collection phase where I was like I had to have everything, it was digital because it was a few years ago. But I would shoot. I was trying to get the most expensive full frame DSLR I could, and I was a student. I worked at a community college as an assistant, and I took out this Canon T4i or whatever kind of entry level camera. I went around shooting with it, and I was looking at it. It's like, you know, really, other than a few things, this is just fine. I could take almost every picture with it, and it's probably even more true with film. Like Karin said, that it's most of these lenses can resolve to digital. I mean, I was shooting the Soviet lenses on a Fuji GFX medium format camera, and they looked fine for the most part. So there's not film you can out resolve. So it's just going to be being able to find a thing that kind of gels with you. And if you find something that's exciting, like I like using cameras with no batteries or light meters sometimes, just because there's nothing that fails catastrophically that's just toast. Like if you have a camera that's all gears and oil and springs, a lot of times you can fix that yourself. And I find that endearing after enough electronic failures.
Yeah, what I also think is that this point with, you know, in the end, we're all shooting film, and, you know, no matter what film stock we shoot, I mean, that's the resolution we get, and that's the look that we get driven by film. And if you're in film and you have this little film photography community, you know, like we have this big advantage that we don't have to talk about the megapixel and how many autofocus points the next iteration of whatever big camera brand just brought in, you know, the last 12 months. So we could be like really happy, and we have this fixed resolution and these different looks we can choose from. And yeah, it's like changing your camera chip, right, by just changing the film stock. And that's so amazing.
that's one of the things that got me really excited about film again. And I had gone up and down with it over the years, and I was kind of on a down point. And then I just kept seeing all these new cameras come out, and was like, oh, I just got the 50 megapixel thing, and now they've got like 60 megapixels or 100 megapixels, and it's just I just got this camera a year ago, and I spent $10,000 on a digital camera, and and then it was out of date in half a year. I'm like, my Hasselblad has been sitting around since the 70s, before I was born, and it's just fine. And that really kind of hit home with me. It's like, I get that thing cleaned up once a decade. It's going when I'm ready to retire. So
yeah, that is so impressive about these cameras, or many of them, yeah, that they hold decades.
Definitely. I saw a couple of commenter questions. I don't know if we kept up with all of them. I'm sorry to people who are commenting if I've missed any. There was one about making companies making new film cameras, and I thought about that because I know Japan Camera Hunter was talking about making a new premium compact, like to answer the T2 or whatever. And he had like great plans and everything, but just doesn't have the money to pull it off, and doesn't have a rich person who would lose money on that. Do we think that things like supporting things like the Bronco Pan or whatever, 3D printing, do we have any thoughts on where we might be able to go in the near future as some of these cameras do kind of go out, like the Hasselblad, for example? Like some of the parts in the back are starting to become difficult to replace, which is kind of scary for me. But any thoughts from?
I was going to say that I think that as a film community, because we're definitely just recycling film cameras like from all over the world, just so we're able to use film still. I think that the fact that there are people out there who are trying to keep it alive by making new cameras, like, I'm not opposed to it. I think that helps for the future, for the fact that obviously, like you said, like these cameras are like breaking down. So if there's like no more, cameras coming out, the fact that, then probably the future won't be able to still use film. So I think that we should do what we can to support all these people who are trying to make a difference and change, and like just keep it going. Yeah.
Anybody else have any?
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I totally agree with Joan. I also feel like us as YouTubers, but also as film photographers, I feel like the fact that we carry on film photography is in itself a good thing, because there's been, if we look at the history of photography, there's been so many photographers, male or female, doesn't matter, that fought for the art for so long, and that put so much effort into it, that still today can teach us a lot of lessons without actually being present through their photos. I feel like it's only good that we not only shoot film, but we support each other, support one another creatively, watching other people's contents, promoting, obviously in a good vibe, promoting like people to be creative, and in a way also initiatives like podcasts, like people that are creating new cameras or technology that might help us film photographers and might help keep film photography going. I think, to be honest, that is one of my personal goals. I would love to, contribute and keep contributing for people to be inspired into shooting more film. And so I feel like it's kind of like a mission to do what we can to support the film photography community, I guess.
Yeah, I can also only second that. And I also think that what Dora Goodman is doing, I think we didn't mention her yet, with the 3D printed stuff. It's amazing as well to help this film community alive, and also as YouTubers, you're right, T, like we can transport the message and tell the message and maybe get people inspired to shoot. And in the end, it's also, we were talking about cameras a lot, but it's also dependent on the manufacturers of film stock. I was just recently also thinking, I never bought an Adox film, and this company is doing so much. They now they bought so much stuff from other companies to produce their own film. They have now also the chemical production, everything under their control, that they don't have to source it and be dependent. And, it makes me think, should I buy it? Is it worth supporting that also? Because, we can have the most fancy, fully functional camera. If there is no more film, that's it.
Yeah, I was thinking about people making cameras and everything, and also somebody was talking about teaching in the live chat, which I feel like YouTube is an extension of, like, I'm a teacher's child, and I went to grad school to be a teacher, and then long story short, my dream job got cut in a budget cut. So, but one of the things I learned is how basic you can get as a camera. You can get a literal box with a hole in it. And I had a teacher who would say a camera is only a light type box with a hole in it. And you can put emulsion on paper. So, I mean, if it gets down to it, I'll be painting paper with emulsion and taking pinhole photos. But I think that kind of helps. I lost my track, but but yeah, there's a lot of room that we can go, that we can teach people how to the basics of it, and the more people who learn that, we get more Dora Goodmans and Ethan, the Bronco Pan guy, who come up with new ways. And you can't tell me that somebody doesn't have like a laser cutter who could devise a laser cut shutter, and somebody else who's really good with a Raspberry Pi could make a program that could make a shutter work. And so it's just up to us, I think, to kind of keep the flame going and helping people recycle until we reach that new point. And one of the things I find encouraging about these expensive cameras is that means that a lot of these are selling and people are willing to pay for it. So we're not quite to where a company could justify a new camera, but maybe we can build to that.
I think there's a distinction too when we talk about new cameras, because there's a company out that does a lot of new cameras, and that's Lomography, but they're, cheaper plastic stuff, toy cameras, which of course I love, that kind of thing. So when people talk about, well, maybe a new company should come out with a new camera, I think they're probably referring maybe more to like a premium camera, maybe a new SLR, something like that, which, yeah, I'd love to see that too. But, in the meantime, I'm kind of like Madison, I'm kind of cheap. So I like to still go to the thrift stores, and I went last week and found a Minolta Freedom Escort. It was like $250. And I'm like, yes, please. So it's not a T4, it's not a T2, it's not a Stylus Epic, it's not trendy, sexy, flashy camera. But I ran a roll through it and it was pretty good. So you can still find stuff out there. So it's not giving up hope by any means.
And I like the recycling culture. Like, we have all this, I mean, these film cameras 10 years ago were practically considered industrial waste. Like there are so many RZ67s laying around. Like, the guy I bought them from just like, oh, these are so nice to just throw away. Here, I'll sell them to the first person I trust with them for whatever he'll give me. And now people are realizing their value, and they're taking these things out, and they're instead of making new industrial waste, we're making use of the old stuff. So I like that part of it.
I think also Nikon, they're still producing a film camera, right? I think the F6. I wonder how well it actually sells. If there is this market where people would say, you know what, I'll go to Nikon and buy an F6. I don't know who, like from the YouTubers at least I'm subscribed to, I don't hear people going and shooting an F6 and promoting it to people and say, look, there is a film camera, brand new with warranty. Go get it if you don't want to buy a used old one with the risk that it doesn't work. But I don't know, what's your take on an F6, for example?
I think they sell, like, I think they had a recall on something with them recently, and they had sold maybe 150 over the last few years, but that's at $1,500 with zero promotion. And I've heard that it's phenomenal, and I love the Nikons from that era. I had a D1, their first like kind of accessible DSLR, and that thing was a tank. It was built around the F5 body, and it was just one of the nicest cameras I've ever used, still to this day, even though it was like 1 megapixel. And so the F6 was made just after that, and I also shot an F100, but it's kind of gone bad by now, but that's, 15, 20 years old. But I would say that if somebody's thinking about spending $1,000 on, I mean, if you're looking at a Leica, you're probably looking at it for being compact in a rangefinder. But if you're looking for image quality, then Nikon might be a viable way to go. But I don't know if maybe it's just a lack of promotion on that. Does anybody have thoughts?
Well, I was thinking, I mean, in general, I think it's great that there's still companies producing cameras. And I think it's incredible that, for example, Nikon is still having the F line up. But on the other hand, I was thinking very hard why, for example, I never had the thought of ever buying something new. And I think that one of the reasons is that I'm very drawn to the history of the old cameras, and I'm very drawn to kind of what they have to tell, what kind of area they come from. And that is something that the new camera cannot serve you. And I think also the adrenaline rise of getting into a thrift store and seeing what you can find, if there's something good or not. I think that's not the same like walking into a store and knowing that you're going to buy the F5, you know what I mean? So I think the whole experience of buying secondhand cameras is kind of something that comes along with it. But I still support, and I still think it's a great thing that companies produce cameras like that. And I think there should be more kind of serious cameras out there, for example, for formats which are kind of not accessible to many, like for example, the X-Pen ratio, there's kind of no alternative to this. So there should be companies producing this kind of cameras as well. And I think then maybe people would kind of close their eye and just buy it anyway without the history on their back and just forget that it's about the vintage vibe. But I think that definitely this is something we have to take into account as well, that the adrenaline and the history behind cameras is also something, at least for me, why I love vintage analog film cameras.
I was going to say that I agree with Karen. I also just wanted to add the fact that price point is really important. For example, a lot of people are already turned off with the idea that film is expensive. So to have a brand new camera, despite you being reassured that it's brand new, you're also like, somebody always tells me like, oh, I could just buy a digital camera. So with that same amount. So for me, I've always looked into like mint cameras, and those are really expensive for like instant photos. So for someone who, let's say, doesn't have a budget, you're not really tempted to want to get a brand new expensive film camera. I feel like, yeah, there's the history, but also a lot of people are turned off by the idea of it just being so expensive. So they rather just buy something that already exists, that's cheaper. And despite it not being brand new, they rather risk the chance of like learning how to use that camera.
But it's maybe also one of the reasons why there's such a narrow market of new film cameras, that maybe some camera brands did their homework and did market studies and found that what Karen and Joan are saying is the truth, even for us YouTubers, that, we like the secondhand market or the cameras with a history or are price sensitive, that they get turned off by even like thinking about it. Yeah, I don't know how the worldwide market looks like, but if it is a secondhand type of market, then it will be really difficult to see big brands get behind the idea of film, other than producing the film for the used camera market. But yeah, good point.
And producing it kind of brings me to another thought I had about film itself, that companies like Ferrania, who are working at like on small scale production, and a lot of the problem is that it's not necessarily lack of demand, it's lack of extreme demand like we had 20 or 30 years ago, like where they would make millions and millions of rolls of film instead of hundreds of thousands or thousands. But companies like Ferrania are out there trying to work to that scale. And so all it takes is manufacturing. Maybe we get to the point where manufacturing can handle the smaller scale type stuff, and then we'll kind of hopefully be able to drag our recycled cameras along to that point or whatever. And yeah, anybody have anything to add to that one? Okay.
I'm really also happy about I wanted to say that I'm just shooting my first roll of the P30 from Ferrania myself. I haven't developed it yet, but I'm super excited, and I'm so happy that that company also came back with their film stock, and yes, in a limited capacity, but maybe the trick is in that efficiency, small scale production, and just basically sufficing the demand and not overproducing.
Definitely. So I was trying to think of if we had covered anything, or if we have any chat questions that we should try to answer, or if anyone in chat actually has questions they'd like to ask, because it's hard to kind of pay attention to all of them. So maybe, has anyone noticed anything?
Somebody was actually making a good point before, like I think like 5-10 minutes ago, I read it, and they were talking about fixing cameras and how that knowledge is sort of like getting extinct in a way. And I read that comment and I was like, ooh, this is really interesting to see that we shoot a lot of film, but the truth is I am a knobhead with, gadgets and whatever. I have absolutely no talent to touch anything, and I'm a very clumsy person, but I would love to see like more, like, let's say, people passing their knowledge and people sharing that knowledge online in a way that will be accessible to everybody. Like, I feel like I've run into problems with my camera, like my cameras, for instance, my K1000, and I had no idea what to do. And I watched a couple of YouTube videos, but and then I went probably looking for them afterwards and I couldn't find them. So I wish that in the future there were some sort of like platform or some sort of initiative that could cover that side as well, the mechanical side of things, which I think is very, very important, because it's kind of like, well, if we get these cameras and it's fine, but like what Vince said before, I think he was saying about the prices of cameras and how we pay that much, and then suddenly they might become, no, I think it was Karen, sorry, they might become a very expensive paperweight. And I think that's a very interesting point that somebody made on the chat, and I was kind of like, oh, that's a good idea. So yeah. I don't know what you think about it, but yeah, I kind of think it's important.
I wonder actually, especially for those, that's actually a good group that we have here. If you are price sensitive, right, and you say, let's say $150 is the max for a camera you would pay, would you actually go and repair or have it repaired? Vince even said his T2 is broken since I don't know how long, and obviously, Vince, you haven't repaired it yet. What's your take on repairing and not throwing them away, buying new all the time, to keep it also sustainable somehow?
Yeah, so my...
Oh, sorry. No, Vince, you go ahead.
All good. Yeah, so my G2 that I got last year in June, like I just bought it like for my birthday as like a gift to myself. When I bought it, like I actually went to the store a couple of times, and it was a local store here in Seattle, and I would like go and pick it up. I like went probably like 4 or 5 times before like I actually bought it. And I didn't like fully test out the camera like in the store. I feel like sometimes I don't do like enough research on just going through and like fully testing the camera. So I just like bought it, and I didn't find out it wasn't working until I put a roll of film through it, and somewhere in the middle of the film, like I got like a 1 1/3 exposure. And I basically from that point, I was just like, oh man, like what the hell am I going to do? So I just like, man, I just started researching on places I could get it repaired. And one of the biggest things just with the Contax is, a lot of people are scared to touch the cameras because just the elephant in the room with them is, who can fix them? Can they even be fixed? And it just really comes down to, there being surplus cameras, whether those ones probably don't work or not. They're just like strictly for parts. If you can like locate one of those and then find somewhere to repair them, in New York, Nippon Photo Clinic is actually where I sent my camera off to. And I want to say I sent it off maybe like the end of July. No, I think it was like the beginning of August of last year, but I didn't actually get it back until maybe like mid to like the end of September. And I originally bought the camera to take with me to London to do street photography. And like, I didn't want to wait that long. Like I obviously, like I bought it to use it, as soon as I got it, but it was just one of those things where I bought it, took it back to the place, that I got it from, they didn't want to give me a full refund on it. They only want to give me like 70% of like what I paid for it. And I was like, well, this is stupid. So I started doing the research and figuring out where I could send it, because like I wanted to use the camera. I didn't want to just like give it up and just kind of like lose hope. But I think when I bought it, I was prepared to basically take on any cost that's associated with it. I think it's just like one of those things, with getting film cameras, is just come to expect that something could go wrong, and basically ask yourself, if something does go wrong, can I afford to replace it? And think about, is this going to be my only film camera that I'm using? Like, am I using this, for professional work, or is it just something that I'm doing just like from a hobby perspective? Because I've shot film like for clients and things, and before, like I would definitely be nervous that something, wouldn't come out the right way. But I've kind of just like trusted the systems that I've had. I think like as long as I hear like the shutter opening, something is gonna get exposed. So, we'll just kind of figure out and go from there, like how it all goes. But yeah.
Has anyone actually repaired their own camera? Do we have any? Yep.
Yeah, I tried to repair an old camera from Ukraine, and I really failed. I failed not because I'm not talented or something with repairing stuff. I failed because of what was mentioned earlier. There is not a lot of DIY stuff on film cameras, so I couldn't find any information on that model. I think that might look different for an RZ, an RB, a Pentax 67, or a Leica M. But I tried, I failed. And I tried it because I was thinking that how hard can it be? But it's not that easy. These mechanical cameras are precision instruments in the end.
There's the YouTube channel Fix Old Cameras that has some repair stuff, and then there's a Facebook group and a website called Learn Camera Repair, and they actually have a bunch of service manuals. So I've got a hit and miss history with fixing stuff. I actually fixed one Hasselblad back, broke one Hasselblad back, and fixed a few other cameras. And then my latest victim is this Nikon FM that the screw stripped out of the lens mount, but I haven't given up on it. But it's a $20-$30 camera, and it's good to give that. There's also a Camera Rescue, I think, is trying to do something with that. So there are some groups out there who are trying to do that. So I think that's somebody looking for an interesting career might find that intriguing.
Yeah, and if you can get good at repairing these cameras, then you can get everybody sending your cameras to fix. I think it's PPP repairs. I think it's over in the UK somewhere. I know that guy was like on Negative Feedback, George's channel. I think it was like last year. And I know he stayed pretty busy with like repairing cameras. Actually, with my G2, I messaged him about sending that out there. But before, like, I wanted to go to that measure. I wanted to see if I can get it fixed somewhere in the US before sending it international. But there's definitely some people out here doing some DIY stuff and just kind of like educating themselves on, how to get these systems back up and running, which is super, super big for the community, no doubt.
Yeah, and there's also some guys in Finland who do it. And I think they do it professionally for all kinds of camera models. So there's this stuff. But yeah, it often involves, especially if you're in Europe, sending stuff internationally. So here in Switzerland, I wouldn't know of such a place.
Does anybody have anything to add on that topic?
I also want to add, if you find someone in your family that is very handy with stuff, ask that person, because I'm always bothering my brother and my cousin to get my stuff fixed, and they actually can. I mean, obviously I'm joking, but like if you're desperate and you do find someone who know a little bit about cameras, and you can share your knowledge, and probably you can join in the repair and learn something yourself, that's actually a good idea. I've actually done that, but I didn't learn anything because I'm not a gear person, I'm sorry. But it's a cool thing that you could do a suggestion if anybody wants to take it on board. But yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, and just to add on right there at the end too is, you know, before getting to the point of like having a repair, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with Zane on his channel from Zane Shoots Film. He made a really good point in one of his videos, just to make sure we're actually like firing our cameras, you know, because sometimes we're not using, they're just sitting around collecting dust, but, you know, just moving the aperture ring around, focusing, just kind of getting the lubrication and stuff like in the camera, just moving around and working. And since I saw that in his video, like I feel like every week now, I just try to just take my camera out and just in the house and test all my different shutter speeds, just kind of just make sure that they're getting some movement. Because sometimes it could be like a little bit of time from when I may shoot with them, you know, to the next time.
Also, a lot of times it's just a matter of a little drop of oil. I have a Canon AE-1 program that a guy literally walked out to saw me shooting pictures in his neighborhood, and he's like, "Hold on." He comes back and he hands me a camera bag with an AE-1 program in it. It's like, "Here, it's yours." And it had this squeaky mirror problem. It sounded like it was dying every time it went up. I found that if you can get a oil needle like all the way to the back of the mirror and put a few drops in there, it cures it. And somehow I found the spot and I oiled it up and it works perfectly. So sometimes taking a risk on a camera that if it's broken, it's broken. It can be, it might not work out, but sometimes it does, and it's worked out for me a few times. So sometimes it's just taking the leap of faith and being okay if something doesn't turn out too well.
By the way, we have questions also in chat. Oh, sorry.
Yes. No. That's what I was going to ask. There was I saw something about budget film stocks. Was that one that you saw?
That one, and a little bit further up, there's also DJack saying, "What are your goals in photography? How does shooting film make you feel as opposed to digital?"
Yeah, I think that's
do you want to start with that? Oh. Marcus, do you want to start with that?
Okay, yeah. So for me, what are my goals in photography? So other than learning myself, where I think I'm just at the beginning of a big mountain. Like I mentioned in the beginning, you know, when I started also the YouTube channel, and it was mentioned in chat, is this teaching, right? So in many of my videos, I try to explain something that I think I somehow have figured out, as at least with the camera systems I have. I try to explain it. Hopefully someone benefits of that, or maybe I can help someone with that. So I'm also very much into explaining certain things and then hoping that someone can benefit over that. And then how does shooting film make me feel versus digital? So since I picked up my first analog camera, which was a Leica M6 in 2018, I have rarely shot my Leica MD, the digital rangefinder that I have. I don't know, what I like is that end-to-end process, because I develop and scan as well at home, color and black and white. I really like that. For me, taking photos doesn't end with hitting the shutter button. And I think that's what really I like about film. And then, of course, the different film stocks, which for me are way more emotional than digital.
David, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I'm with Marcus. The whole process is really what gets it for me, and part of that, just like Marcus, develop my black and white color scan. I don't have a home darkroom, so I'm not printing yet, other than, you know, inkjet prints like a lot of people. But I really like the fact that there's a tangible product. You've got your negatives or positives if you're doing E6, and you've got something you can hold. You can hold it up to light. You can put it on a light table. You can view it. And for me, you know, I like digital as well, but you just don't get that feeling or that vibe or that emotion holding up an SD card, you know. And I'm a tangible guy. You know, right behind me here, I've got a turntable there. I play my vinyl records on, LP still. So I like the fact you can hold it out, touch it, and see it. That's a big part of the process for me.
Madison, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'm pretty similar to Dave, really. It's just the physical process of it. For me, I don't know, the image is almost like a byproduct of the process. I love like the picking the stock, loading it in the camera, developing, scanning. That's my favorite part of it. And the digital is just taken away from you. And I think that's probably also a nostalgic feel for me. I remember when my family was a kid, them all shooting film cameras. So I think that goes with, like Karen was saying, with the history of a camera and this nostalgia. And I just don't get that feeling with digital.
Karin?
I'm actually so thankful for this question because I think it's so easy to kind of get stuck in gear and talk about cameras all the time. But I think this question kind of leads us to where it should go into photography and not only the cameras. And I think this I would also declare as my goal, that I would like to use the gear to my advantage and not make it just about the gear. I mean, I recently, like I think it's almost 3/4 of a year ago, I bought my Leica M6, which you could consider, oh, it's all about the gear and it's all about Leica. But for me, it's just about the process, because I feel this is the camera I can really use as an extension of my vision, as an extension of my body, and not get anything in the way. And this is why I'm kind of stuck to this. And for me, maybe this is rather personal, but I was always kind of in between the arts. I never knew where to place myself. I was big into painting, and I'm still loving painting, and I was into digital photography. And for me, analog is kind of the thing that combines it all, because it's very physical. You can touch it. It's almost like painting with light. And the whole process opens up a completely new gateway for me. I develop all my film black and white and color myself, and I have a home darkroom, which gives me the freedom to experiment also with painting elements in photography, which I haven't shared that much on YouTube yet, because I don't know if this is something for everybody, because it's kind of a geeky niche, but it's so much more physical and so much more working with my hands rather than just, I don't know, pointing a shutter. It's really physical labor in a way, which I think analog photography is a big plus when I compare it to digital for me.
You should check out Kate Breakey if you haven't. Combining traditional art and photography. So
I'll hit you up later and ask you for the name again,
definitely.
because I'm kind of not good at multitasking and I cannot write it down now. But thanks for the tip. That's exactly what I'm looking for. These kind of content.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's I'll add the tangibility thing is like a big thing for me. Like I do digital and everything, but I like that. I would do all these layers and everything in Photoshop, but it just felt so hard to get a hold of, like mentally, when it's just a bunch of layers. But when I'm kind of mixing and matching physical objects and the digital, it's kind of it's a good conduit for creativity to me. But Vince can.
Yeah. So just to follow up, obviously on the question that we're all answering. For me, how does shoot and film make me feel as opposed to digital? I mean, to be quite honest, I feel like in a way, like film photography kind of just like saved me, honestly. Like I've been doing like photography and filmmaking for like 4 years now. But last year, or like when I moved to Seattle, I kind of like got into a rough spot just for me mentally and everything. I was kind of like in depression and battling that. So I've been like coming out of that slowly but surely, almost like now a year later. And film photography was something I could just turn to myself and just focus like my energy on, and just let it be that one thing that can just like, I can just become obsessed about and distract me from everything else. And I just really just took a dive into it. And, for me, it's just like a very sentimental type thing. Like when it comes to this whole creating thing, it's super important to me. Like it's something I'm like very emotional about. Because, when it comes from, just film and just photography as a whole, like what I want to do and like why I do like YouTube and why I love like talking with everybody so much is honestly outside of just the actual photos and photography itself, it's the community aspect around it. Like me and Joan have been able to get really close like over the last, few months and things. And I've been able to connect with so many people just like on YouTube and just, through the messages and just hearing from so many different people like around the world. Just about this common thing that we have, this common ground. It's super cool to see because, at the end of the day, I feel like everybody wants to belong. It's not necessarily about validation or acceptance, but it's just like knowing that you're not alone in this thing. So it's super cool to just share that with so many people. And then just kind of like, goals, I guess, to add on with like photography is, right now I'm currently like working on a project called the London Project, and I've just been like uploading videos on my channel about that. So it's been like a filmmaking and also like photo, I guess, experience like for myself, because like during this time, like where I was like enduring like all of this, like London was kind of like a place for me to, you know, just really be able to break away and just be able to focus on creating. And I've been there like a couple of times when I went last year. Like I shot nothing but film. That's the first time like I've ever done that. Like I think I took maybe 3 or 4 digital photos, but they were just something when I was just like on a platform, like just about to hop on a train. But like all the portrait shoots and fashion shoots I did, it was just like all on film. And honestly, like I wasn't even scared at all that if I was going to get something exposed or not. And it was funny because actually on a few rolls that I got, they were messed up. But you know, I didn't have any fear with that at all. But when I came back from the trip, excuse me, I was like, you know, do I want to just solely do this like when I go to shoots is just shoot film? Because if I do have to turn something over, like if I don't have anything at all, I might be in a weird position, especially like if I'm doing like test shoots and stuff with agencies where like I have to give them something, you know, it's just TFP. So when I went out to LA, like when I came back, that was something that I was doing. Was shooting a bit of digital and film. I was using like the Canon 5D Mark IV for like the longest time, but like now I actually don't even own a digital camera, which is wild. So, you know, I only have the option to shoot film. You know, I love the process. You know, I love how everybody said, you know, just the physical aspect. It's just something that's tangible, you know, going to the store to buy the film, looking at the negatives. I was just looking at my negatives today on a light table, just like using my iPad. It's just a crazy like experience just to be able to take it from just seeing something on the screen to actually being able to hold it in your hands. And you know, for anybody that's doing anything in a dark room and printing like that, that's a super cool thing. Or if you have some setup at home where you're developing, I know Ribs from doing film things, like he does like a lot of darkroom printing, and you know, I love seeing that process. And like this dude does this like week in and week out. And like just from that, like kind of seeing somebody make adjustments from test prints and things that they're doing, it kind of plays into, you know, the adjustments of editing your photos. Just like Madison was saying, she loves, you know, scanning in her photos, that whole process in itself. You know, I'm sure we've all developed our own workflows for how we're processing our film. I mean, even for me, I've been scanning at home for quite some time now. And it's just something to get used to. You know, it's just, I actually love the process, even though I scan on the Epson V600 and it may take all day, all night. You know, I may spend all day on the film, but it's like fun. You know, I get on the scanner, I scan it, I queue everybody's videos up, and I just like sit and watch them. So at the end of the day, you know, it's super cool to share common ground with everybody and truly have community around this film photography thing. Because for me personally, like I've never felt this, like just shooting digital or just even in filmmaking, to where I've talked to like so many people and people want to sit down and talk about this and get excited about film. So it's cool to see so many people just excited about photography and just want to take photos, man. It's just a super cool time. So, you know, let's continue to build this community for everybody and, you know, be examples, you know, for people watching us, for what they can do, and yeah, and just go from there.
Joan, do you have anything to add?
Gonna say, how can I go after that? What I was gonna say is that there's like so many layers to this question. Well, first off, I started YouTube just as like for fun. Like I freelance as a photographer and direct, and so pretty much like I don't depend on YouTube to make income. And when I made my YouTube channel, I literally just like what Marcus said, like I just made content because like I felt like there's things that I learned and I felt like I couldn't find on YouTube. And then I just wanted to make a video because I want to help other people out there who couldn't find it on YouTube or Google or whatever. And so, but then it like grew even more, like the whole like being part of YouTube became a more like in-depth process, because then like, especially with COVID, like you can't really go out, you can't travel. And like, I decided that I wanted to really reach out to the film community. And that's why I started Creative Juice, because I really want to get to know people who do film photography or just are creative, like-minded people in general, just because we all have something in common, but then obviously we don't put everything out there. And I just wanted to just meet more people, besides the fact that I can't physically see them, but the fact that I could still, with technology nowadays, it's like anything is possible. So now that like I got to meet a lot of people who are here on this chat right now, and then even probably people who are on the chatting right now on the sidebar, it's just incredible to see like what you can do with just networking and connecting with people and realizing, just like Vince said, like sometimes it's really easy to just like feel like you're just alone and no one else understands you. And then in reality, everyone actually relates to you in some sort of way. And that's why, like I said, I created Creative Juice. And then at the same time, when it comes to comparing with film and digital, like I feel like that's the biggest argument that a lot of people like to bring up. For me, I don't want to down digital, because by all means, I also still use a digital camera, but I just don't necessarily promote it on my channel as much as film. For me, my personal work is strictly film, just because I feel like that's just what the medium that I like in general. And even people are like, wow, you're not even just shooting photos in like film, you're also shooting like videos, like movies in like analog. And they're saying that like that's like a whole nother process or budget and all that stuff. But for me, like I enjoy it entirely. Just to know anything that revolves around film, like I just want to learn. And what I was also gonna just say is that pretty much that like I said, it just depends on the project. It sucks that like a lot of like clients, they just want the film look, but they don't want to pay for the film, you know what I mean? And so that kind of like is a turn off, because like you have to just emulate the feeling, when regardless if you try to copy it or replicate it in digital, it's just still never the same. So it's like convincing the client to tell them to just, you know, invest in buying film instead of just trying to copy it. And that's why for me, I also feel that if you just keep producing work that's shot in film, people are more entitled to wanting to use the medium. And then they're just like, oh, that was shot on film, that wasn't shot on your digital camera. Like, no, I shot it on film. Like, especially with the Super 8, I just, you know, bring it around and shoot whatever, whether it's like skateboarding or these protests, like, and people are just like, what is that? I don't know, it just starts a conversation. And that's why I also think I like the whole analog film community, the whole medium, because it gives a conversation or a reason to talk to each other. Whether you're at a restaurant or some fast food joint, like somebody will see your camera and they just wants to go up to you and ask you what that is. So yeah, there's just a lot of things that revolves around it. But like I said, I don't want to down digital at all. There's nothing against it, but yeah, definitely you don't get the feeling with holding an SD card. I don't know, that just made me laugh so hard. But yeah.
Do you have anything to add?
So I feel like coming after Vince and Joan is kind of like they said everything very much what I absolutely agree with what they said. I feel like my only thing that I would add is like probably in regards to the shooting film and shooting digital. I feel like I took up film photography because I wanted to be challenged in a way, in a sense that I am part of a much younger generation that kind of missed out on a party of the golden years of photography, well, film photography in this case. And so for me, it was more like when I was 14, I started doing photography more seriously with a digital camera, and I just felt like I wasn't being challenged enough. I frequently like to just find things that are challenging that I can learn and grow the most with. And I find like film is probably the best medium when it compares, obviously not downgrading like John said. I'm not going to sound like I don't want to downgrade digital, but I feel like film is much more rewarding in a way for me specifically. Obviously, this is me speaking, my opinion. And I feel like not only there's a lot to learn with film, I feel like, again, the fact that it's tangible, and everybody mentioned that. And I think that's kind of like part of self-discovery as well as an artist, as a sort of like, there's so much that we could pull. That's why Joan said there's so many layers to this question, that there's so many things that we can add to it. But I ultimately would say, as a much younger person that came to film photography, it was about the challenge for me, and I still will. I do film photography exclusively. I don't shoot digital, and for me it was more like just for the challenge of it. And I think that yeah, that's pretty much it.
So we're a little over an hour and 14 minutes now. So I promised everyone about an hour, and I know it's getting late on the other side of the world. So do we have any parting thoughts? And I'm sorry if I missed any questions or anything we want to cover before we, I guess, wrap it up.
I feel like I have.
Well,
feel like
keep
I may
shooting
have
film.
something.
That's what I'd say.
Let's keep, let's keep doing it.
Sorry, I just said keep shooting film.
I know.
Yeah, let's just all keep it going. I'd like to add, I'm super thankful to be here, like with all you guys. It's so cool to see, like, after seeing videos, obviously on everybody's channel, is just kind of going from that point of just like being a viewer to like actually being in the same room, so to speak. I think probably like one last thing that would be good. I was just monitoring the live chat here, trying to scroll up and see. Photos on Film said, what would you like to change? You wish that would be different within the analog photography scene. And I kind of like just chimed in on that. I think one thing that maybe film photography gets a knock on that digital shooters may come back and try to combat us with, and not downplaying that. I'm actually in the process of trying to buy a digital camera. I'd like to get like an X Pro 3 and like an XT4, but the XT4 is like for video, but I kind of feel like I need something on digital that I can just shoot without thinking about how much each shot costs. So they said what's one thing that can be changed. I just said I think one thing that has to change, like within the scene, is just, here's this photo, it's great because it's film. Like obviously that's our medium, and it feels like so great to actually do it and hold it and do all of these things. Like that part of it, nobody can take that away from us at all. I don't care. When I'm not looking at no SD cards or deleting no photos off the back, what I shot, it just is what it is. So I've taken plenty of bad photos, like on film, like on digital. I think that's just the one knock is, maybe newer people coming into this thing is, they may want to get the Instagram likes. They may want to get like, the YouTube subs or whatever. They may start a channel. I think Jamie, we've talked about this a little bit in the group message, kind of like leading up to this point. I know it's been mentioned. I know Jonas talked about this previously on the channels, and we've covered it a little bit here in the chat. Is, a lot of these popular cameras are, getting used like in titles and stuff to kind of get people to click. I mean, I'm definitely guilty of that, using like, cameras in a title to get people to click. But, I never try to like just solely focus on the camera. Like you may have came there because I use the camera, but it's not, the end all be all type of thing. And that's just the biggest thing is, it's not great. The photo itself isn't a great photo, when it comes to what a great photo is, because it's just, film. Like, I think that's just one type of thing, but I feel like that kind of segues into a whole another, what makes a great photo. Maybe that can be a future chat. But I think that was a good question that would be good to end on. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody have anything else to add to that?
I just want to recap. Oh, sorry. I don't know who's talking.
If you want to recap, maybe I can just tell my thought, and then maybe you can wrap it up. Well, I don't know about you, but I sometimes, like, if somebody asks me what my biggest fear in life is, I know this is getting deep, but stay with me. I think one day not being able to shoot film is definitely on the list. And when thinking about this, I was also thinking what would have to happen to make this happen, not being able to shoot film. And I think the three things we need to keep film alive is cameras, film, and people shooting it. And I think we have to remember that we are one part of this. We are the people who are shooting film and who are kind of part of keeping it alive. And by doing this, we also influence the other two. By shooting film, we also influence the companies who are producing film, and we are also kind of keeping the camera business, be it on the flea markets, like used camera business, or the new camera business alive. And I think we just have to keep this, in mind, that the biggest fear of one day there will not be any film is very, very unusual, or not very likely to happen once we are in this and we kind of give our best to keep film alive. I think this is just maybe a thought to keep me at ease, but also just to wrap it up and say that we are kind of part of this community, and by connecting like we did today, I think that's a very good step to just kind of keep the film business alive and make everything we can to not make this big fear happen one day. Okay, that's all. Sorry, John.
No, it's okay. Like what Karen said, I just want to follow up just saying that besides just supporting everything that revolves around the film community or just film in general, if you're thinking about getting into film, like have fun. Like honestly, I feel like, you know, we talk about all these technicalities, but literally like don't like just remember, like don't get too sucked into the thought of having an expensive camera. Just have fun. Even if you mess up on your first roll and it's blank, don't like, you know, give up. We've all experienced that in some form, and probably we'll never post that on YouTube, but that is the truth. Like we all make mistakes in some way, and like there's by all means like whatever you see on YouTube or social media, like it's definitely like edited to the point where like you think we know it all, but honestly like there are so many outtakes that probably like for me I love seeing behind the scenes stuff. And so that's like my biggest thing, especially because I teach during the summer to like high school students. I always tell them like film is like it's just like life is a journey. You go through struggles, and like honestly like for you to just expect that your first roll is going to be like amazing. And like, I know you're excited, you want to post on Instagram and stuff, but like in the end of the day, like it's just you getting to know your camera to the full extent and not just being so eager to just jump onto like whatever is trending or whatever like that. And so, yeah, that's just like my biggest thing. Just have fun, go shoot, and like, don't even like second guess it if it sucks. Like just still post it anyways. You never know, someone else out there might think is like a bang shot, and then you're just like, whoa, really? Like I thought it sucked. But yeah, that's just my advice. Yeah.
Great. So yeah, if anybody wants to say anything else, feel free to chime in, but I really appreciate it. Did we skip anyone's final words or anything?
I would add one thing, and I think Marcus had a great point early on today, which is your camera's not going to do any good if you don't have any film to put in it. So keep shooting, keep that demand up, because if we don't keep shooting, film's going to go. So keep it up.
And we're paying, like, I know film is expensive, but I also showed that maybe it's not as expensive as we thought. Did a little price comparison and inflation, but you do have to plan a little bit more sometimes. But it's an investment into your vision. And so sometimes it's worth it to spend $10 on a roll or more. And even if you can only shoot the $5 stuff or whatever, it's still going to be worthwhile. But anyway, I'll let anyone else add anything before I wrap it up. Okay. I
Marcus,
can't.
you're muted.
Okay. Let's see, Marcus, are you
No.
talking or? Okay, well, hopefully I'm not talking over anyone, but thanks for showing up. This is so cool. I'm so happy that we all got together, and I get inspired by watching everyone's videos. And oh, Marcus, are you okay?
Yeah, sorry. I might have something that I want to add. What I think is something that we film shooters can or should pay a little bit more attention to is that we're kind of like a community that often talks about the differences, be it film or camera, what we like or not, but we have so much in common. And what I think what we have most in common is actually not the film or the camera, but our approach to photography, especially if we say that is our main kind of work we do, is that we are shooting a medium where we are not compensating a computer. It's also something I was thinking about creating a video at some point, but you know, if you have a digital camera with a display, you might be tempted to play with that EV thing, or you take a shot, you chip, you're like, oh, it needs to be lighter, darker, composition is not good. And no matter how good you are technically on a digital camera, you might fall into the trap to compensate a computer. And I think we with film, we can't do that, right? And we don't have this instant gratification. And it is something that we can build up on, and we can teach others. And I think that is so beautiful about film photography. No matter what camera, no matter what film, we create a moment, we capture a moment, and we see later what came out. But we don't compensate at a moment. We can live that moment where we're shooting, not being distracted by this computer. And it is what I like so much about film.
I love that it's a trust thing. Like you know that this film is supposed to behave this way or not behave this way, and you know in this situation it should work out. So you just take it, and there's a lot of trust and feeling it out from there. So that's a great thing. And if you work professionally on digital, which I did for several years, it really helps because you spend less time looking at your camera. You can just raise it and take the pictures and think about capturing the moment instead of, is this going to look good on the computer or whatever. But I hope that maybe we could make this a regular thing, like in smaller groups or other groups, or if you want, we'll work it out. But I really appreciate this. If you like a smaller dose of this, check out Joan's Creative Juice. I think that's a really cool kind of I guess weekly chat, or more than weekly, I forget. But that's a good place to check out artists talking to each other. And subscribe to everyone here. Thank you to everyone who's watched or watching. And if we have any parting words, if not, I'll go ahead and end it. And yeah, thank you all.
Right.
It's been a lot of fun.
One last parting thing. Thank you so much, Jamie, for doing this. And Marcus covered like chimping and everything, as far as like on digital photography. Jamie, like you covered a really good point. I forget the title of the video, but it was like fairly recent. And you were talking about, shooting on film and shooting like with the model, like because we can't look at the photo, because we can't look at, what's actually going on. If we're shooting with somebody, it kind of takes that fear out of them, like, okay, like how am I actually looking in this moment? And more or less it kind of creates a more comfortable situation because either the photographer or the subject, the model, even knows like what's going on. It feels like a more present process, which is something that I've definitely always appreciated, because you just stay in tune like with what's going on. You're not getting distracted more or less by your camera, but just really focusing on taking photos at the end of the day.
Definitely. Does anybody have anything to add before we wrap up? All right. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully I won't botch the ending. I'll clip it off. If not, if you did miss anything, this will be up for replay, I think, almost immediately. Thank you all again. This is awesome. Everyone, subscribe to everyone. Like if you're watching and you haven't subscribed to any of these people, or not all of them, you should definitely do that. Thanks for showing up, and have a great night or afternoon or wherever you are. See ya. Okay, the stream is over.